Hi there, Lynn Cox, clinical hypnotherapist, working with women who have escaped domestic violence situations as well as had experienced childhood abuse, and just helping them through hypnotherapy as well as other modalities, including yoga and martial arts, to more quickly recover from some of the lingering impacts of those experiences. So I posted up in my story earlier today, pardon me, I was on Instagram and I think it was yesterday and something popped up in my reel, excuse me, that was some women's self-defense organization, and it was showing how to get out of a chokehold. So the one that I posted up and said, "Hey, I'm going to be talking about this later today," wasn't the one, but doing a quick search on Instagram, this one came up relatively quickly. And then I also added on to that the famous quote from Bruce Lee talking about, "I don't fear the man who," or how does that go? Something to the effect of fearing the person who has practiced one kick 10,000 times, and how that relates. So I want to start off with saying, and this is going to sound highly critical, and I'll preface it by saying, I'm not familiar with the business whose post I posted up. I don't know what their theory is. I don't know what their programs are. I don't know how they message self-defense. I did see a couple of things though in this video that struck me as red flags and concerning, and I'll touch on those. So I can't speak to their business. It was just one of the first popular ones that popped up. And then the Bruce Lee thing, this will come in and make sense. So I want to start off by saying, first of all, I work with women who have already firmly exited past domestic violence, because violence relationships, and the statistics really range as to how many times a woman will potentially exit the relationship and go back and exit and go back. So I do only work with people who are certain that they are out. And typically, and this relates to the strangulation, typically they've had a real coming to Jesus moment within themselves where they fully understand the potentially deadly impact of remaining in that relationship. Because a lot of people struggle because there's so much cognitive dissonance around how, like, I'm not going to get into that so much today. I want to talk about and emphasize the point that strangulation is one of the most deadly situations that you could potentially be in. And a lot of women experience what's called non-fatal strangulation by a partner. So where there's the act and it could result in them losing consciousness, but it's not deadly and they survive. And then sometimes they do stay in that relationship. And it is, in this particular video, the one thing I noticed, and I want to talk about a couple of things here, is that video makes the comment that you'll have about 6 seconds before you lose consciousness. Okay, that could be true, but the one thing they don't point out is you could have less than a second before somebody could crush your trachea, and you could, and that would be it. It would be over for you at that point in time. So I don't like there to be a false sense of security that, oh, this is the technique to defend yourself against strangulation, or this is the technique to defend yourself against an attack with a weapon. Because the fact of the matter is if somebody, and between a man and a woman, there are some biological facts, and those are that men are typically bigger and stronger than women. And men will typically have larger hands. Thus, if we're talking about strangulation in particular, much easier to have those wrapped around a more petite, or relatively speaking, person. And so definitely an imbalance in strength, as well as speed due to muscle mass, as well as size, and as well as size when you're looking at somebody taller and shorter, just the physics and mechanics behind that. defending yourself as a woman against a larger man is extremely challenging, and you would have to be highly skilled to be able to even stand a chance. And then throw into the mix that men who do those types of things are completely out of control in some kind of a psychotic fit of rage. And that can add to their strength. I don't even like to use the word strength, but so to look at that, okay, defense to a strangulation, I kind of think that it's actually a little bit irresponsible to even be showing something like that on Instagram and kind of making light of the matter, like, oh, this is the technique you would use. Oh, 6 seconds. Because if you really count it out, 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000. The fact is that it could take less than a second for someone to wrap their hands around your neck and crush your trachea. So that, in my mind, is the first irresponsible message there. The best defense against strangulation is being nowhere near somebody who would ever think to put their hands around your neck. And unfortunately, women in domestic violence situations, things tend to be progressive, right? It could start with some yelling and screaming and throwing things, and then maybe there's a push and a shove and a hit, and then maybe it escalates to striking or holding or choking, or maybe the person just completely snaps and the first time tries to strangle you. The point is that you don't know. So that at the first sign, the best defense is to be as far away as possible, exit that situation if possible, and really understand the fact that your life is at risk. And that if you ever are in such close proximity where somebody can have their hands around you or be in that striking distance, like I study martial arts, and even after training for as many years as I've trained, I don't feel confident. I feel a level of confidence that maybe I have enough muscle memory for a few things that maybe I could put up a fight in a situation or extricate myself. But the training from a self-defense perspective comes from the fact that I fully understand the importance of awareness. And so awareness in your surroundings when you're out and about, you're far less likely to be attacked by a stranger in a situation like that. But it has and does happen in cities and towns. But also the awareness that anybody who's got a violent nature should be considered an extremely dangerous and potentially lethal individual. And that the best defense against that is to have no contact, no relationship, never be in close proximity if you can manage it. And you kind of have to consider it like your life depends on it to manage that. So when I see these self-defense videos and things like that, I just want to emphasize that, you know, the chances are slim that you'd be able to defend yourself, and also people are highly unpredictable. I love martial arts, and I love martial arts more for what it's done for my spiritual growth, my psychological growth, helping me practice techniques that help you to self-regulate. And there are some self-defense techniques that we've learned, but I've certainly not practiced. I'm going to go to the Bruce Lee quote. I certainly have not practiced defense to chokeholds 10,000 times over the past years that I've been training. And that's relevant because if you are ever attacked, we talk about things like awareness and self-regulation. Unless you're some kind of a master, I do not put myself into this category, to have the control of your physiology and to know how to respond, and then to also have the muscle memory to be able to execute some kind of a defensive technique, would take years upon years and hours, thousands of hours of training. So like a weekend women's self-defense course why, while it can be fun and invigorating and help to get that emotion and feeling of, empowerment and strength, it is literally not an adequate defense by any stretch of the imagination for situations like that. And particularly for women with a violent partner, the best defense is to be so far away with no contact that you would never be in that situation, because it would have to be the case of Bruce Lee knew a thing or two. It's the one kick 10,000 times that lays down a muscle memory. And then when somebody has that kind of muscle memory down, yes, they could react very consciously in a millisecond, but not in a situation where a man is trying to strangle a woman. And unfortunately, and I did talk about some statistics about domestic violence. Statistics don't even, you know, statistics don't even really quasi adequately explain the horror that people experience in those situations. That those are extremely traumatic, devastating, frightening situations. And it is a shame, and I still don't exactly know why it is difficult at times for women to leave those situations. But the best defense is to leave no matter what, to have a value for your life, and then to work after to recover from any kind of PTSD response, um, the emotional upset, the impact that can have on your self esteem. All of those things can be rebuilt. But if you're not alive and breathing, that can happen. And so, yes, while I agree that activities like self defense and martial arts and boxing and things like that are so great, but it's more about what they do to our physiology and our health. And I mean, I train with a group, we have community, there's all these other benefits that are more of the psychological and physical and emotional nature. I don't train in martial arts to enter into competitive fights. I don't train to say, oh, now I could defend myself. It helped me feel stronger as a human being. But I also knew, because I was in a relationship with a violent person in past years ago, um, but it did help me kind of regain a feeling of internal strength and more confidence. So that's the therapeutic application of it. Not to say, well, if he ever comes at me, then I'll definitely know how to defend myself. That could potentially be a spin-off, but not the primary goal. And so I know I might sound like like I'm really harping on this, but the the risk the risks associated with strangulation and physical combat with somebody, particularly if you're a woman with a man, your chances are very slim of being able to defend yourself. Strangulation, it's less of the potential of uh, death outcome is very high, because it takes a millisecond for somebody's trachea to be crushed, not 6 seconds to lose consciousness. But there have been a lot of cases of women who have had that experience and have lost consciousness and then had resulting brain damage. And think about the impact on their lives after that. So it is no joking matter. If you're looking at things like self-defense or martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, all super awesome to help you build strength, to be able to start to develop that more mastery over your physiology, because we are the only mammals who can consciously self regulate. And that is a powerful healing tool in and of itself, to be able to work on regulating your own physiology, to be able to keep yourself as much as possible in the rest and digest state, healthy, physically healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy. But yeah, when I saw that video pop up yesterday, I went, I, I just wanted to comment on that, because as it relates to women in domestic violence situations, um, that has a deadly outcome, and it's best to be as far away as possible. It's unpredictable, and you never want to be in a situation where somebody has that close proximity and could potentially get their hands around your neck. Very dangerous, very lethal, and people need to be, think about that. Definitely think about that. When a lot of women consider, well, maybe he is really sorry, and maybe I should give him another chance. I'm a strong proponent of, if you value your life, I would consider reconsidering that, and instead work on recovery from being in those situations, recovering from the emotional, psychological, and the physiological damage that could have and very likely was done for being in such a constant fear state. And that work can happen, and that healing can happen. The first part has to be nowhere near harm's way, physically speaking, and then that other emotional, psychological, physiological self-regulation can happen after that. So I hope everyone's having a great day, and I'll be on again soon. Bye for now.